Hey guys, welcome back. Today's lecture, Thursday, April 30th. So, yesterday, let's see, we talked about uh, Prague and Czechoslovakia and the Soviet Union having to invade, and then Vietnamization and SALT. Now, in 1972, President Nixon visits China. He becomes the first U.S. president to visit China. Now, why is that important? It's because for the last 40, 50 years, China has been, well, for the start of that 40, 50 years, they were kind of ignored by the US, and then they become communist, and tensions flare up between the US and China. But then China has tensions flare up with the Soviet Union. And you know that old saying, the enemy of my enemy is now my friend? Well, then the US sees this as uh, an opportunity to balance power with the Soviets, to uh, try and take away one of their previous allies. And Nixon goes to China, and this is probably Nixon's biggest accomplishment as U.S. president, because from this meeting we develop a trade relationship which has been extremely important to both the U.S. and China, monumentally important. Nixon, in effect, opens China to the U.S. Now, they understand their extreme differences, and they're never going to be like friends. Like, we're never going to be allies in any kind of war, I really doubt. But being able to feed off each other and work with each other to build our economic strength and to further advance technology. Like, this technological revolution we've been in the last 20 years would be impossible without our relationship with China. So, the issue of communique or communique, I should just say announcement. That's all a communique is. Recognizing their, as they say, essential differences, like capitalism versus communism, but they make it clear that normalization of relations, so an agreement to go back to being civil and working together was in both of their best interests. They would both benefit from that. Neither of them are benefiting from this kind of icing each other out and this standoff. Enough of that. Let bygones be bygones, and let's create an alliance or create a mutually beneficial relationship. And that's what ends up happening. So that was huge for both the US and China, because the US now they can outsource jobs to China. So China has more work and more people to do work, and America saves money by buying those goods at a lower rate, because communism can control the prices and they control the input and output. So Mao Zedong can tell the people how much to make and how much they're going to make, and then it's probably going to be pretty low, and the US is going to buy a lot of it. Then in 73, we have the Paris Accords. The US and South Vietnam get North Vietnam to agree to the Paris Peace Treaty, which was saying, please stop firing. Let's leave the countries as they are. North Vietnam stays communist, South Vietnam stays democratic. The US gets out of war, and both sides can live happily ever after. The only problem is, as soon as the U.S. gets out of there, North Vietnam resumes its attacks on South Vietnam. And then in April of 1975, the capital city of South Vietnam, which was Saigon, falls. So when Saigon falls, the South Vietnamese Republic is no more. And Vietnam is now unified, but they're unified under communism. And to this day, they are still communist. And Saigon is renamed Ho Chi Minh City, which Ho Chi Minh was the leader of the North Vietnamese army. And when this happens, we thought, oh goodness, there's the domino effect. Vietnam's fallen. Cambodia and Laos have fallen. You know, it's only a matter of time before it spreads to India and then all over Asia and then all over the world. However, that doesn't happen because with this, the Soviet Union starts to lose its power and its effect. Not a lot and not immediate, but over time, their influence is going to lessen. And communism doesn't spread as fast as we thought it would. So in theory, containment kind of works. It just didn't happen immediately. Today, in the world, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Today there is either 4 or 5 countries that are communist. Cuba, China, Vietnam, Laos. I feel like I'm forgetting an obvious one. But either way, not very much. Russia is not communist. Once the Soviet Union ends, Russia is not communist. They're capitalist today. Man, that's bugging me. I think there's one more. But either way, it's not as prevalent as we thought it would be. But at the same time, you could also say it's not as prevalent because we fought it so hard. So who knows? You know, it's either way. That's the state of communism today. Now, I previously mentioned Cambodia, and here's something that doesn't get talked about very often, or at least not often enough. Cambodia is a country right next to Vietnam, like it borders Vietnam to the southwest. So they were also struggling, and they turned to communism. And they have a communist group called the Khmer Rouge. Khmer Rouge is not a person. It's a group that rises to power. Cambodia is a tragic story. They were led by a man named Pol Pot. And I've always said, it is in my opinion, that Pol Pot is the most evil person that has ever lived on the earth, at least in modern times. In my opinion, he was 1,000 times worse than either Hitler or Stalin. Pol Pot takes power in Cambodia, and then he has this vision of Cambodia that they are going to all turn agrarian, meaning they are going to be complete farm-based. They're not going to be like technologically advanced. They're not going to have any business. Like they are going to be agrarian communists. So the government is going to tell you what to farm. And if you don't make it or don't make enough of it or it's not good enough, you will be killed. Problem was, not everybody's a farmer. You take a doctor and you tell them you have to grow this much corn, and you give them a terrible piece of land to grow it on, you can't expect that to be a fruitful endeavor. And you know, if the doctor doesn't come through, he's killed. Now, it was likely that doctor wouldn't be given that chance because Pol Pot saw any kind of educated Cambodians as a threat. He killed all the doctors. He ordered the execution of all of the college educated and most of the urban population, most of the people that couldn't farm. It was so bad. So remember, Cambodia is a part of French Indochina. So many of the adults, or at least older people, were educated in some form of French education. Pol Pot hated the French. So if you spoke French, you were executed. If you were educated in any kind of French, you were executed. If you wore glasses, you were executed. He believed glasses showed intelligence and elitism. It showed you could read. And if you could read, you were probably too educated for this agrarian Cambodian communism. You were executed. Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge killed 3 million Cambodians from 1975 to 1979. 4 years, 3 million. The total population of Cambodia before 1975 was 6 million. So Pol Pot ordered the execution of 50% of Cambodian citizens. He ordered the execution of half of his own people just to enforce his own power. That's what I mean when I think he is worse than Hitler or Stalin. And he rules for a few years and does so brutally, as you can see. And after a while, Cambodia decides to kick him out and get rid of communism. Now, if you enjoy a story of justice and national healing, this probably isn't the story for you. Pol Pot just disappears and lives on his own, probably in Vietnam, and he dies of natural causes in the late 90s. Never brought before any kind of court, never arrested. His retirement, basically is what it was paid for. He has got to go disappear off in the countryside. Cambodia was known as the killing fields. They would have citizens that they were going to execute, tell them to dig, especially like the people they were forcing to farm that didn't know how to farm. They'd tell them, dig a hole in your field. That'll help things grow. And they'd be like, that doesn't make sense, but okay. And they'd dig it, and they get all the farmers around, and then they'd shoot them, and they'd fall into the hole, and they'd just bury them there. And they believed that was fertilizing the fields. They called these the killing fields. I mean, there's mass graves with thousands of Cambodians just laying in them. There are mounds of earth in the countryside today that if you dug at all, you'd find a bunch of bones. They're just mounds of dirt that they had to cover hundreds of bodies with. Cambodia does not get talked about very much. And that's a shame because that was a huge travesty. And that happened 50 years ago. Less than 50 years ago. That's recent history. And it is not something that is, common knowledge. And a lot of that's because America wasn't really all that directly involved with Cambodia. So like media didn't cover this, so it didn't blow up. Like, the Holocaust is well known because America got involved in that. And also a lot of people from the Holocaust were still able to survive it and tell their story. Not many Cambodians were able to survive and tell their story. So I try and talk about it because I think it needs to be mentioned. So the essential question, what leader of Cambodia killed 50% of his own people? I want the person, not the group. The person. If you give me the group, it's wrong. So that's it for today. We have a Zoom meeting at 11 today. Just to touch base, I'll have a question of the day. We'll talk things out so everybody can come to that. It won't take real long. So I'll see you guys there, and then have a terrific day.